Hey fam, what's up, what's up, what's up? This is Robert Anton here, robertanton.com, bringing your Xfactor commentary from a singer. So we are on day 3 of the auditions, right? And they were auditioning in Chicago, and they went back a second time to Seattle. It's kind of a really strange thing because I'm like wondering who's going to be there when, because they seem to be toggling between Cheryl Cole and Nicole Scherzinger. So in Chicago, we had Cheryl Cole there, and they had 5,000 people online for the $5 million prize. Even though it was raining, you know, cats and dogs outside, everybody still came out, or a lot of people still came out. So I just something that I find funny, right? I found it funny that like they introduced Paula as a choreographer and performer, but not as a singer. And we know her mainly for her music. I mean, that's what she became famous for. But they don't introduce her as a singer in the opening. I remember thinking about that the first few times, but then they said, you know how the third time gets you? Well, it kind of got me, so whatever. I'm going to move on to the commentary. They started out in Chicago, and their first act that we saw was Brock and McKenna. They were 22 and 18. They did Colder Weather by the Zac Brown Band. And I wrote that they had a very nice blend, and he had a phenomenal voice quality to me. It was just very rich and just wonderful. Simon said she also had a very great voice. So, you know, I thought her voice was okay. I thought his voice was just very rich and powerful, and, you know, it was just great. Of course, they got 4 yeses they went through, and, you know, their whole story is that he's in love with her, but she doesn't know it. Of course, when she watches the episode, she's going to know it if she doesn't know it. But he was kind of mooning over her and stuff. I don't know how she wouldn't know. Yeah, they were good. Next, they had a Kim Terek. She was 35. She did Firework by Katy Perry, and this was one of the funny ones, you know. She said that she had taken 10 years of voice lessons, you know, but she never sung popular music, and she was trying to sing it. It was just funny. It was like bad operatic. It wasn't even really operatic though. It was, yeah. So it was one of the funny moments that we all enjoy so much. I don't know. Do you enjoy the funny moments? Let me know down in the comments. Next up was Renee Royal. She was 45, and she had on a crazy outfit, you know, and she was way off key. But she looked good for such an older woman, you know, 45, you know. I'm not going to say I'd hit it, but, you know. She's all right. Then Skylar Anderson, 16, did Must Be Doing Something Right by Billy Currington. Black guy, young, 16, you know, drove up from the South, I think he said 9 hours or something, 9.5 hours. And I just wrote that, you know, the music cut out and he just kept going, you know, kept singing. And he didn't, his voice wasn't supported by his breath. That's one thing that I noticed. But he had such a nice tone, such a nice quality. He had a nice twang, you know, he's wanted to do country. And he had a nice natural twang. So I really enjoyed him. Of course, he got 4 yeses. He went through. Work on your breathing if you ever see this. If somebody sees them and they know him, work on your breath support. Next, J. Mark Inman, 31, did Creep by Radiohead. And he was strange, you know. I didn't think he had the best voice, but he gave a very memorable performance. It was just, you know, I thought it was excellent. You just dancing in between. He's doing the strange little moves and stuff. He had his own, like, arrangement. I thought it was very good. He got 3 immediate yeses, and he went through. I don't know if the 4th judge was going to vote yes or not, but he just went through and left. So he did his thing. So they, of course, have the little segments where they're just flying through people. And I just wrote down Arin who was 15, did Ain't No Sunshine and sounded really good. Just the little snippet that I heard sounded really good. Josh Krajcik was 30. He did At Last by Etta James. You know, and the audience was there from the moment he opened his mouth. The audience was there with him, and I was there with him. I liked the gruff, I called it the gruff tenderness in his voice. And his mom was great. I didn't think he was going to be any good because his mom was kind of pushing him along, you know, kind of really pushy, and she was really like, oh, he's so wonderful, and you got to hear him. And, you know, so I thought he was going to be like, you know, just another comic, you know. But the man sang. He sounded really good. You know, and always when that voice comes up, it's always the first person I think of is that Michael McDonald. But, you know, it is what it is. He just has the most prominent kind of, with that gruffness that also has such tenderness in it that most people can think of. But I really liked it. So next they went back to Seattle, and Nicole Scherzinger was the judge this time. The first stuff that I got is TheGoodGirls. They were 70 and 31. They were, of course, family, mother, daughter team. They did What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, right? And you know if I start laughing, it was funny. So it was funny. They were just singing. They were so monotone and stuff. I laughed out loud. Yeah. So it was funny. And, best of luck to them. Next up, Drew Ryniewicz. She was 14. She did Baby by Justin Bieber. And I wrote she had a good voice and she made the song her own. She had this crazy wide-legged stance and I was like, what is she doing? But whatever it takes, baby. She sounded good. Not great, but she really, she had a lot of confidence, to be so young, and her arrangement was very good. The judges, Simon and Nicole, said that they preferred her version to Justin's. And of course, L.A. Reid actually signed Justin, and he really, really enjoyed the song and he thought that she was really good. They thought it was a very current version and the people her age would actually buy that version. I Got Jada, a group, didn't make it but sounded good enough to me. I thought they sounded good enough to make it. But it was a very short clip, I think, that they did. Pete Montzingo, 21, did Billionaire by Bruno Mars. And I thought this boy was going to tear it up, But the judges were looking at him like, oh. And he wasn't that bad, He wasn't that good either, He's kind of middle of the road. But he had so much personality and everything. They didn't put him through, but I thought it was nice that they were very encouraging. And they were saying, you got so much personality, you got so much possession, you're going to be famous, and you might look into movies and films and television because, you got a lot of, he had just a lot of zing in everything that he did. And next up was For Sure. They were a group. They did End of the Road by Boyz II Men, which I did not know L.A. Reid wrote. And I wrote their harmonies were pretty good and they were crowd pleasing. 3 judges also stood up for them and they got 4 yeses. They were good. They had good harmonies. Of course, you can always use more work. They probably were a little nervous, but they were just so into it and they got the crowd going, and they had somebody who was kind of like calling out, yeah, come on and stand up, I'll give it this, and he was really hyping the crowd, and so that was good. The guy who did the high notes, now and then he was a little, not so great, but it was good, it was pleasing, it wasn't perfect, but they got a lot of room for improvement, but they're already very good, so I'm glad that they went through. Elaine Gibbs, 53, she did You Got a Friend, and I wrote that she was sounding like a mix of Patti LaBelle and Sylvester. She sounded good, she was bringing the church. She went through. This was a little mini segments that they were kind of doing. Francesca Duncan was 17. She did Hero by Mariah Carey. Just a little snatch they showed, but she sounded very good. She went through. Tiger Budbill was 42, and he had this big note. That's all that I really remember of his performance. It was really long, and he had 3 judges say yes, and he went through. Philip Lomax, 21, did Fly Me to the Moon, and he was definitely doing Frank Sinatra version. And he had such an old school feel, but he had a nice touch of energy and charisma, to me. He just was owning the stage and he was just, ebullient, effervescent, every word that I could think of, that was just like out there, and he really did his thing. Not the greatest voice, but again, it's not always, and I tell people as in my So You Want to Be a Singer series, it's not always the greatest voices that make it. It's those people who have all of this going on. They have, the performance, they have the charisma, they have, the smile, they have the energy. So he had all those things in spades, and he went through. So they had a whole segment where they were talking about how the girls were being very catty, and any girls who were good looking and sounded halfway decent were dead on arrival coming up. And the girls are like, no. And it was very funny. So they showed one of these girls, they were the pink stilettos. They looked good and stuff. They sounded okay. And again, the girls would get kind of like, no. And then Simon made a crack. Another girl came up and she sang, and Simon made a crack that, that's probably how Nicole sounded when she was 20-something. And Nicole said, no, you can look it up online. And she busted out, she did Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, right? And nailed it. Nicole was on. She did, just sat there, just, tore it up. And I was screaming for it, because I was like, you go, Nicole, show them, baby, show them how to do it. And the girl on stage was kind of turning up her nose and stuff like that. Naturally, she didn't go through. All right, and so the last person I have is Tia Tolliver. She was 19. She did Impossible by Chantel. She was a sweet girl, and I thought she gave a very nice, intense performance, a lot of energy, very, again. But the girl, she was not on pitch, she was changing keys, she just, if I saw her, I wrote that I wouldn't have put her through. I would have said no. And the 2 guys said yes, the 2 girls said no. And so they had this whole big fight about her. And then they asked her to do a second song after they had already voted, okay? They asked her to do a second song. Then they went to commercial and they came back and said, do you have a second song? So she bust out with It Don't Mean a Thing, right? Old jazz standard. And I thought, wow, she's going to tear it up. No, she didn't tear it up. Again, she had a lot of energy. She had a lot of stuff going on. And I think the girls, again, were not going to put her through. But Simon begged, you know, and all this good stuff. And finally, Nicole gave in. Paula was still like, no. And I probably would have been that one. I'd have been like, no. No. She needs too much work. But Nicole gave in and she put her through, and so that was the end of the segment. Did you guys enjoy it? Who was your favorite tonight? And did you think the girl who did Chantel and Don't Mean a Thing, do you think she should have gone through? I still say I'm gonna have to see what Tia does, but I just didn't feel like she brought it, you know. And with all the people that they had auditioning and stuff, you know, I probably would not have put her through. Yeah, and that's just my 2 cents, and I'm allowed my 2 cents, right? This is. I don't have to agree with anybody but me. Yeah, so my name is Robert Anton, and I do the So You Want to Be a Singer series here on YouTube, teaching young performers how they might make a living as a full-time performer, as I've been a full-time performer for over 20 years in New York City, and you can find that series on here, plus my original music. All right, this is Robert Anton, and I am out. Peace.